I wanted to touch on some of the underhyped quarterbacks, because quarterback is where the biggest difference is made in college football. You look at the Heisman Trophy finalists the last few years. A lot of transfer quarterbacks end up being there in the end. And I wanted to highlight 6 guys here that maybe aren't getting their due as far as transfers go. And we'll begin with Tennessee, the highest win total, as they brought in Joey Aguilar to take over at quarterback following the loss of Nico Iamaleava. Now, Aguilar is unique because he was at Appalachian State for a couple years, then was transferred to UCLA. Iamaleava went to UCLA, so Aguilar went back into the portal and ended up in Nico's old spot in Tennessee. You follow me? Capiche? That's where we're at. Aguilar's a really interesting player, though, because while Nico Iamaleava had crazy upside, no one's going to deny that. The reality is, do we ever really see it come to fruition? And you think about what Aguilar is going to bring in. He's experienced 15 games as a starter as App State, threw for 3,700 yards back in 2023, 3,000 in 2024, 56 touchdowns to just 14 interceptions. And he's going to join a Josh Heupel offense where, you know, there's been moments where Josh Heupel actually is better with less talent. Hear me out on this. Because if you're going to look at straight arm talent, Joe Milton and Nico Iamaleava are not the same as Hendon Hooker. The first two I mentioned have much bigger, powerful arms, sexier talents, but Tennessee had their most success with Hendon Hooker at quarterback. I'm very curious if playing within this spread offense that Josh Heupel runs, and he's run for a long time as a Mike Leach disciple, which always matters to me when I follow these guys who run the spread, when they run the air raid, is if they worked or played for Leach, and Heupel is one of those guys, so he's one of the originators of this, having played the quarterback in this system. And I think he has a chance to coach Aguilar up, and Tennessee, 8.5 is a big win total. I'm intrigued by the possibilities of what Aguilar could be. Maybe not this year, but more so next year. I wouldn't touch the win total there, but I do think he's someone that deserves a little bit more hype heading into the year. Now, I've had to hold back my hype discussing this next quarterback. And that's because the reality is the Iowa Hawkeyes have not embraced the forward pass until this moment, until right now. Kirk Ferentz has been anti-throwing the ball through the air despite it being a thing in football for a very long time. And they brought in Mark Granowski to take over at quarterback. And you're like, who the hell is Mark Granowski? Gronkowski? No. Granowski. And Iowa ranked 72nd in scoring, 117th in total offense last year, but 129th in passing. So even worse than all of that in passing. Now they bring in a guy in Granowski who won 2 national championships at South Dakota State, where he was a 4-year starter. Won the Walter Payton Award back in 2023, which is awarded to, it's similar to the Heisman Trophy. It's the best offensive player in the FCS level, and he's a dual threat. Threw for 10,000 yards in 149 games, 33 total touchdowns last year, 37 in 23, 38 in 2022. And he also played once against the Iowa Hawkeyes when he was with the Jackrabbits, losing 7-3, where Iowa won the game because they had 2 safeties and a field goal. So they didn't even score a touchdown, winning 7-3. But Granowski, I think, is going to add an element to Iowa that we haven't seen in a while, with being able to run, being able to throw, different dynamics. They always play good defense. They always have great offensive linemen. I think Iowa is sneaky, over 7.5 on the win total. And could they be a team 9-1 to make the playoff now that they have a quarterback? I should warn you, though, Kirk Ferentz is the guy in betting. I think we all have them. Tweet them to me, by the way, at Dustin Swedelson, at VSiN Live. Who's the one coach, the one team that whenever you believe in them, they let you down, and whenever you go against them, they end up coming through for everyone who bet the other side? I am always on the wrong side of Kirk Ferentz. When I bet on him, he loses. When I bet against him, he wins. But I like the addition of Granowski. And then 2 of my favorite quarterbacks coming up next as far as underhyped quarterback transfers. Chandler Morris going to Virginia. I'm not sure why this isn't getting more pub, but this is a guy going to Virginia where Tony Elliott's on the hot seat, and he needs a guy who can sling it. And this is a team that scored just 22.7 points per game last year, 16th in the ACC, second worst to Florida State. And Chandler Morris comes in from Oklahoma to TCU to North Texas. And last year at North Texas, 3,700 yards, 31 passing touchdowns, just 12 interceptions. Threw it a lot, has transfers from Purdue and Notre Dame coming in at wide receiver, and a very manageable schedule for Virginia where the win total set at 6.5. There's no Clemson, there's no Miami, there's no SMU, there's no Georgia Tech. I see at least 6 wins on the schedule and a bunch of coin flips in there. I think Virginia is a team that has the potential to go over their win total, and it's because of Chandler Morris. And then my last underrated of my favorite of these group of quarterbacks would be Conor Wegman going to Houston from Texas A&M. You know, Conor Wegman's going to play under new OC Slade Nagler, who ran the system Willie Fritz ran in Tulane, and Tulane brings him back. He spent a year at LSU, where I'm sure he picked up on a lot of things. But Wegman's a former 5-star, and that win total for Houston set at 6.5, and I think it's a little low. This is a very experienced guy at quarterback. 13 starts at A&M, 2,700 passing yards, 19 touchdowns last year, 9-4 as a starter at A&M. He gets his top 2 wide receivers returning, adds Casey Concepcion at receiver from NC State, who I love as one of my favorite portal additions in the offseason, and they've got an easy non-conference. Stephen F. Austin, Rice, Oregon State. And I think last year they were put in a situation where they were playing in transition, playing from behind with a lot of moving parts, with a new staff coming into Houston. I really like what Conor Wegman's going to do at Houston. I'm going over 6.5 on their win total. The 2 guys I didn't get to hit on, Gio Lopez going to North Carolina and Darien Mensah heading to Duke. I think they're both very intriguing players, ironically, going to the rivals there in Tobacco Road. But first, Gio Lopez, the lefty from South Alabama, going to play for Bill Belichick year 1 there. And I do think he's a pretty solid player for year 1 of what Belichick wants to do. The Tar Heels win total 7.5. I have no idea what to make of them. I don't think anyone really has a good gauge or a good read of what to expect. But I do know they got a pretty solid quarterback in Lopez with some pretty good experience. Lefty, started as a freshman at South Alabama last year, 2,500 pass yards, 18 touchdowns, 463 rush yards, 7 rushing touchdowns, 5.6 yards per carry, a 66% completion rate. Like, he was the only FBS quarterback to throw for 2,500 yards and complete 65% of his passes or better and run for at least 5 yards a carry. He's a good guy to build around because I don't think he's going to make a lot of mistakes. You can scheme around his legs, which seems to be a great equalizer in college football these days. I like the addition of Gio Lopez going to North Carolina, but again, I wouldn't touch the win total because there's so much about that roster that I just don't know what to make sense of. And then the other quarterback that jumps out to me, and I don't know how he ended up here other than money, and I'm shocked that Duke was the team that ended up grabbing Tulane's Darien Mensah. I would have sworn, if you would have told me Darien Mensah last year was going to be in the open market, that a team like Miami would have considered paying for him, right? Or an SEC school that wants to be relevant is going to pay for him. But instead he goes to Duke. And I think Manny Diaz is going to do a really good job there this year. He did a good job last year. The win total's low at 6.5, but you're looking at a guy in Mensah who was really good last year. As a sophomore, 13 games, almost 66% completion rate, 2,700 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, won 9 games with Tulane a year ago. And they want to run a fast-paced, pass-heavy offense, and I feel like he's the guy to do it for Duke. And their wide receiver room's been added. Oklahoma's Andrell Anthony comes in, Cooper Barkate in from Harvard, and they're out of conference. Look, they have Illinois, which is going to be tough for Duke, but no Miami, no SMU on the schedule. I think Darien Mensah is capable of lifting this team to over 6.5 wins here in 2025. So that's where we stand with the quarterbacks.
Thanks for watching, but don't let the betting insights end here. If you want an extra edge this football season, you can get a month of VSiN Pro right now absolutely free. That means access to our betting insights, analysis, and tools like our betting splits at zero cost to you. Click the link in the description to sign up.